kick things off with a new build that I'm doing. It's a silent build, and go over some of the stuff that I decided to use for this build. And I'll do some more videos later, doing some reviews on the items that I chose to use for this build, and going over a few numbers and stuff. Not too much detail. And then I'll follow up with a video on the actual process and the building it. As with anything, the first thing that I needed to look for was a motherboard. So when they come out with the AMD Ryzen 1700 AMD processor, I thought, well, it's time, let's get this going. So I went out and got a Crosshair 6 Hero motherboard by Asus. I know there's some BIOS issues with this, but sometimes as early as this came out with the processor, that there could be a few issues, and I'm willing to work through those because I think this is a really nice motherboard, and it'll work well for what I'm doing. So for the first time ever, out of the builds that I've done previously, all been Intel, I decided I was going to finally switch to an AMD. And I got the AMD Ryzen 1700. Now, I know there's a 1700X and there's a 1800X, but I think that for right now, this is clocked at 4 gig, and people are getting clocked at 4 gig, and I have every, I believe I'll hit 4 gig, and it'll be rock stable. And I'm waiting till the BIOS fully get updated on this, and who knows, maybe I can get a little faster. But the numbers that the 1700 is putting out, and for the money, it seemed like the best choice for what I'm doing right now, and it'll work for all the needs that I'm doing. I like gaming, but I also like to do some editing, and there's some other software stuff that I like to do, and this kind of gives me the best of both worlds. And I don't need to clock this at 5 gigs to get enormous performance out of it. I can get it clocked at 4. And that's another thing. And then it's not using as many watts. So, and since I already use AMD graphics cards, I said, well, makes things a lot more simple for me. The next thing was the power supply. Now, besides the motherboard, power supply is, if not the most important part of all. If you have a bad power supply, one that's not efficient, you have all kinds of problems. Now, there's lots of power supplies out there to choose from, and it really, to me, came down between 2. The Seasonic Prime Titanium 650 and the Avega G2 550 watts. Now, the G2 Avega has been out for a little while, but it's got really good review and off of JohnnyGuru.com. And that was after all the research that I'd done, that was the final decision that I chose between which two of these I was going to get. Now, if you've been out there and seen the reviews about Seasonic, the 750 and the 850 are amazing. The 650 was just a little notch below those, but it got a 9.5, and if you look on Johnny Guru, 9.5 is really well. If you take off the wires, which I'm not actually going to use the wires in these, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm just going to use cable mod. It would have been like a 9.75. The 750 would have been a little more power than what I wanted. The 650 still may have been a little more, but if I decide to go with a second graphics card, a 550 is going to be a little too close for me. So after everything, I feel really good about the purchase of the Seasonic Prime 650 Titanium. It is a very nice power supply. I don't really get excited over power supplies. I'm excited over this power supply. So I got the Ryzen MSI RX 470. Now I actually have this one out of the box. And I'm not sure if you've seen it. This is a very nice graphics card. Not too expensive, but yet not too cheap. This card in another machine. I'm very happy with it. It works really well. All right. On to... I'll get to this second. Onto the Corsair H100 IV2. Now, I decided that I didn't want to go all out water cooling as my first build on my YouTube channel. I figured I'd reserve that for a little later down the line. So, all contained. I've had previous Corsairs, not the dual. I've had some singles and some builds. Have worked extremely well. The only thing I'll knock on these is I believe the fans are just way too loud. On my other builds, I actually changed the fan out on those as well. I think the decibels are too high for the quiet build that I'm doing. They don't quite put as much air pressure. So I decided that I would get some Silenco FP120 PMW 100. Well, this one's a 120 millimeter fan. I got two of these. Now, I chose these because at 2400 RPMs, they put about 76 CFM. But I didn't get it for the CFM. I got it for the air pressure, which is 4.8 at 2400 RPMs. Now, at 27 decimals, it's a little higher than what I'm aiming for, but I'll have to see once I get it in the system if it's going to be within the tolerable range that I want. I can lower the RPMs down some, but at 4.8 for air pressure, that's about twice what the Corsair fans are putting out. So it's putting in a lot of air pressure through the fan blades into your case. Pull it through the radiator into the case. So what these do and what they put out, that's why I chose these. Of course, I got two of them. And, I already feel the air coming out. These move a lot of air through something. I've used these in another build, and I was very pleased with them. So, the case fans. I got the Fractal Define R5 case. It's been out for a little while, but I like the looks of the case. It's sleek. I really like the looks of the case of it, and it's quiet. Now, as you can probably tell, or if you've probably seen them, that there's not a whole lot for air to come through. Now, it can come through the sides, it can come through underneath. So, I'll go into further detail when I do a review on this case. I really like this case, so that's going to be my first build. So, I got the Fractal Design Venturi HF14s. Now, my decision on these, comes a nice case, got a lot of blades. My decision on these had nothing to do with the case I bought. I literally looked at about 40 different fans for air movement, CFM, and decimals, because, again, I'm doing a quiet build, so I don't want high decimal fans. So to try to find a lower decimal fan that actually put out a lot of CFM, well, a little more difficult than I really anticipated on when I was looking for a fan. It just so happens that their Fractal Design Venturi HF14 put out a lot of CFM. At 1200 RPMs, they're putting out 118 CFMs, like 27 decimals. That is a lot of air. But I plan on running these. These come with a little attachment. As so, right here. It reduces the RPMs to 850. And it still puts out 78.5 CFMs. Now, on the box, it says 18.3 decimals. Now, I've seen some other places get the decimals a little lower than that. Regardless, if it's under 20, I will be happy. But that is, and you know, you can spin it, and I can feel quite a bit of air just from a little spin coming through this fan. I'm really happy I chose these. This is exactly what I was wanting, to be quiet and to move a lot of air. And I need to move a lot of air in a case that's going to be sealed up pretty well. One other thing that I liked about these fans is that you can remove these. Now, these are hookups for 140 millimeter fans. But if you remove these and put these adapters, then it'll fit holes for 120 millimeter fans. That's even better for me, that I can hook to 120 millimeter. It's just an extra bonus for a fan that I really like. So I'm really excited to see them perform by what they're stated, and I'd be really glad to see these get put in. So now on solid state drive, I got the Crucial MX300 2.5-inch solid state drive. Now, I don't need a lot of gigabytes. A lot of stuff that I do in editing, I'll eventually delete. So I really don't need a ton of space. Now, this is not the top of the line. It's a pretty good solid state drive. And 275 gig is going to be plenty for what I need. I don't need no real high gigabyte solid state drive. So this will work really well for me. Now, as with the AMD, seems like it's pretty finicky about the memory that it is using. Here are lots of things going on. So I decided after my own little research that I decided to go with the Corsair Vengeance LPX. Now this is only two 8 gig sticks for 16 gigs at 3200 megahertz. I know this can run at this. I've seen it do it. So I feel really good about the memory that I chose. Now there's some memory that's a little more flashy looking, but if it won't work with this, then what's the point? So let's get on to... So if you haven't seen the Fractal Define R5 case, it is actually quite nice. Now I'm going to go into the... I'm going to go to another video into a little more detail on this case, but it's actually quite nice. It's got a lot of stuff you can move inside the case. It's got the door that can open. You can remove it. It's got the sound padding on the door itself. And it's a really nice case. I'm really looking forward to this build. Now the only thing I do not have with me is cable mods. They're taking a little longer to come in than I anticipated, and I would like to have them here because they look really well. When I do my build and I do my video on it, I'm going to be using the cables wires that are in the Seasonic Prime 650 titanium. Now, they're not sleeved, but they do their purpose, and they'll be hidden pretty well. But I'm going to go ahead and set it all up with those wires. Now, once the cable mods finally come in, I'll use those and do another video and remove all the existing wiring and run the new cable mods. And so there's my first video, and I'll have more reviews on the products I'm using and an update pretty soon on my build.